the weight of the world. For Elena Ramirez, usually felt heavier than the industrial-grade mop she pushed. But tonight, the object in her trembling hand outstripped it all. Gold, solid, gleaming, and impossibly heavy, winking with what looked like 100 tiny stars. A man's Rolex, abandoned in the opulent silence of the closed mall. For Elena, a cleaner whose every cent was stretched thin caring for her ailing son, Mateo, this was more than a watch. It was a lifeline, a desperate prayer answered in the most bewildering way. The whispers began instantly. Keep it. Fix everything. No one would know, but a deeper, quieter voice, her mother's legacy of unshakable integrity, posed a different question. What if this glittering temptation was actually a path not to escape, but to an unimaginable destiny, one woven with threads of unexpected true love? Elena's days were a carefully stitched patchwork of duty and dwindling hope. Before the sun even considered gracing the city, she was up, packing a small lunch for Mateo, her 8-year-old boy whose bright, inquisitive mind was often clouded by the frustrations of a learning challenge that required specialist schooling, a dream as distant as the stars of Rolex now mimicked. Her own dreams? They were tucked away, like old photographs, too painful to look at too often. Love, companionship, a life beyond the scent of cleaning fluid, and the ache in her back. These were luxuries she'd long ago decided she couldn't afford. Her first job was cleaning downtown offices, a ghost gliding through deserted cubicles long after the important people had gone home. Then it was on to the Northwood Grand Mall for night shift, transforming its glittery daytime persona back to pristine for the morning rush. Her small apartment, though threadbare, was an oasis of order and warmth. Mateo's drawings, vibrant and full of innocent genius, were her most prized decorations. The absence of her late husband, Marco, gone 5 years now, was a quiet ache that never truly subsided, a constant hum beneath the surface of her exhaustion. She was lonely, a profound, deep-seated loneliness that she rarely acknowledged, even to herself. Yet, within her tired frame beat a heart of immense kindness. She'd leave perfectly good discarded magazines for the elderly security guard, Mr. Henderson, knowing he enjoyed them, or share a piece of her meager lunch with a stray cat that haunted the mall's loading docks. These were small acts, almost invisible, but they were the truest expression of Elena Ramirez, a woman defined not by her hardships, but by the unwavering compassion she still managed to extend to the world. She just never imagined the world might, one day, extend something so extraordinary back. It was well past 2 a.m. The vast, echoing halls of the Northwood Grand Mall were steeped in an almost reverent silence. Elena was meticulously wiping down the gleaming chrome accents outside Chronolux, a purveyor of timepieces so expensive they seemed to belong to another dimension. Her cloth snagged. She knelt, her knees creaking in protest, and peered into the narrow gap between a velvet rope stanchion and a potted palm. And there it lay, pulsing faintly under the emergency lights. The Rolex. She picked it up. The sheer weight was the first shock. It was heavy, substantial, cool against her work-roughened palm. Yellow gold, intricately linked, with a face the color of a twilight sky, framed by a dazzling corona of diamonds. Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just expensive. This was a king's ransom. Instantly, like a rogue wave, the possibilities crashed over her. Mateo's school, not just the fees, but the best therapist, the tools he needed to unlock his brilliance. The looming eviction noticed she'd been hiding from him. The chance to finally see a doctor about the cough that rattled her thin frame. For one dizzying, heart-stopping moment, the watch wasn't a lost item. It was salvation. Who would even miss it? Some oblivious tycoon, for whom this was probably a mere trinket, easily replaced, quickly forgotten. The thought was a potent, seductive poison. She worked so hard, harder than anyone she knew, for so little. Didn't she deserve this one stroke of impossible luck? The universe owed her, didn't it? She could almost feel the cool relief of bills paid, the warmth of a secure future for Mateo. Her fingers tightened around the watch, the diamonds pressing into her skin. But then an image shimmered in her mind. Mateo's face, his eyes wide with innocent trust as she taught him right from wrong, the simple, unwavering honesty she tried to instill in him, and her own mother's voice, gentle but firm, echoing from her childhood. Elena, mi hija, integrity is the only jewel that can never be stolen, and the only one that truly enriches your soul. The Rolex suddenly felt impossibly heavy, burning a hole not just in her pocket, but in her conscience. The battle was fierce, the temptation almost overwhelming, a siren song of security against the steadfast, quiet melody of her ingrained principles. With a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of years of struggle, Elena made her choice. The momentary fantasy of escape evaporated, replaced by a weary but resolute determination. The Rolex, carefully wrapped in a clean polishing cloth, went into the deep pocket of her smock. Her first thought was old Mr. Henderson, but his shift was long over. The main mall security office. Then, it was on the ground floor, a sterile, windowless room that felt a world away from the luxury boutiques upstairs. Each squeak of her cleaning cart wheels seemed to shout her secret to the empty corridors. What if they didn't believe her? What if they accused her of trying to steal it, then getting cold feet? The thought made her stomach churn. She was, after all, just a cleaner. The guard on duty, a young man named Miller, looked up from his phone, his expression bored, verging on irritated at the late-night interruption. "Yeah? What is it?" Elena's throat was dry. "Excuse me, officer," she began, her voice barely a tremor. I found something. Upstairs. Near Chronolux." She carefully unwrapped the watch, placing it on the worn laminate counter. The diamonds flared under the harsh fluorescent lights, momentarily dazzling Officer Miller into silence. He leaned forward, his boredom vanishing. "Whoa," he breathed, picking it up with a newfound respect. "Holy, where exactly did you say you found this?" "By the velvet rope on the floor," Elena repeated, her voice steadier now. He whistled softly. This is the real deal. Lady, do you have any idea what this is worth?" "I know it's very valuable," Elena said simply. "That's why I brought it straight here." He took down her details. Elena Ramirez, night shift cleaning crew, her contact number scribbled on a log sheet. He seemed to look at her differently now, a flicker of admiration, perhaps even disbelief, in his eyes. "You know," he said, as he carefully tagged the watch and placed it in a secure lockbox, "there'll be a hefty reward for this, I guarantee it. The owner will be, well, ecstatic doesn't cover it." Elena merely nodded. The thought of a reward was a distant hum. The primary sensation was one of immense, bone-deep relief. She had faced a monumental test and chosen a harder, better path. That knowledge settled in her heart, a quiet warmth that no amount of money could buy. As she walked away, pushing her cart back towards her duties, the vast, silent mall somehow felt a little less lonely, a little less daunting. Miles away, in a stone mansion that brooded over the glittering city lights, Arthur Vanderbilt felt a cold dread seep into his bones. His watch, Eleanor's last birthday gift to him, was gone. He'd been at a private fundraising dinner in one of the mall's upscale restaurants, a rare foray into the social world he'd largely abandoned since Eleanor's death 2 years prior. He remembered unclasping it, the catch feeling a little loose, placing it on the table beside his bread plate. A momentary distraction, a handshake, a polite conversation, and it had slipped his mind. He'd only noticed its absence when his driver dropped him home, the bareness of his wrist a sudden, sickening shock. It wasn't the monetary value, though that was astronomical. It was Eleanor, her laughter as she'd fastened on his wrist, her eyes sparkling. "So you always carry our time together," she'd whispered, just months before the sickness had stolen her away. Each tick of that watch had been a beat of her memory, a tangible link to the happiness that now felt like a dream. Arthur was a man cocooned in wealth and profound loneliness. His business empire flourished. His staff catered to his every need. But genuine human warmth was a currency his fortune couldn't buy. His grief was a high, impenetrable wall. He'd immediately called his head of security, who in turn contacted the mall management. A substantial reward was offered, no questions asked. But Arthur knew some losses were absolute. He sank into the vast leather chair in his study, the silence of the house amplifying his despair. The loss of the watch felt like losing Eleanor all over again, a fresh wave of grief washing over him. He could only hope, a fragile, flickering ember in the darkness, that whoever found it possessed a conscience. 2 days later, Elena was in the cramped employee break room, trying to coax Mateo through his homework over the phone during her short meal break, when her own phone vibrated with an unknown number. "Ms. Elena Ramirez?" a crisp, professional voice asked. "Speaking," Elena replied, a knot of apprehension tightening in her stomach. "My name is Charles Mercer. I am calling on behalf of Mr. Arthur Vanderbilt. You recently turned in a wristwatch found at the Northwood Grand Mall." Elena's heart lurched. Yes, I did. Mr. Vanderbilt is exceptionally grateful, Ms. Ramirez. He would like to express his thanks to you personally. Would you be available to meet him at his offices this afternoon? We would, of course, arrange transportation. Meet him? The owner? Not just a call from mall security. Not just a check in the mail. A flicker of fear mingled with an undeniable curiosity. "My shift ends at 3, she managed. "Perfect. A car will collect you from the mall's south employee entrance at 3:15. The car was a gleaming black Bentley, smoother and quieter than anything Elena had ever ridden in. She felt acutely self-conscious in her worn, albeit spotlessly clean, work slacks and blouse. The Vanderbilt Corporation Tower loomed over downtown, a monument to power and success. She was ushered into an office on the top floor, a space so vast and elegantly appointed it could have swallowed her entire apartment twice over, with views that stretched to the hazy horizon. Then Arthur Vanderbilt walked in. He was older than the rare newspaper photos suggested, perhaps in his late 50s, with distinguished silver hair and eyes that held a surprising depth of sadness, yet also a keen, searching intelligence. He wasn't imposing in a harsh way. Rather, he radiated a quiet authority and a weariness that wealth clearly hadn't alleviated. "Ms. Ramirez," he said, his voice a low, cultured baritone. He extended a hand. "Arthur Vanderbilt. Please do sit down." Elena perched on the edge of a plush leather armchair, feeling like a sparrow in an eagle's eyrie. "I cannot adequately express my gratitude," Arthur began, his gaze direct and sincere. "That watch, it holds irreplaceable sentimental value." "I'm just very glad it's safe with you now, sir," Elena said, her voice a little shaky. It was the only right thing to do. Arthur studied her for a moment, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "The right thing," he repeated softly. "It's a path less traveled than one might hope, Ms. Ramirez, especially when alternative offers significant temptation." He gestured to a thick envelope on the polished expanse of his desk. "This is for you, a token of my immense appreciation for your honesty." Elena looked at the envelope. Her mind instantly calculated. Mateo's tuition, the overdue rent, a month without worry. But then a stronger feeling surged through her, a fierce, quiet pride. She wanted her act to stand on its own, untainted by the expectation of reward. "Mr. Vanderbilt," she said, meeting his gaze steadily, "that is incredibly generous. But I didn't return it for money. I returned it because it wasn't mine. If you insist, perhaps a small gesture. But truly, knowing it's back with you is reward enough." Arthur Vanderbilt simply stared. He was a man accustomed to people wanting something from him, usually more than he was initially offering. This quiet dignity, this gentle refusal of fortune, was utterly disarming. A flicker of something warm and entirely unexpected sparked in his chest. "Ms. Ramirez," he said, a new note of profound respect in his voice, "you are quite extraordinary." He leaned back slightly. "Tell me about yourself, if you don't mind. What does a woman of such integrity do with her days?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "And so, Elena found herself talking, hesitantly at first, then with growing ease as Arthur listened with an attentiveness that felt utterly genuine. She spoke of her cleaning jobs, of Matteo, his brilliance, his struggles, her dreams for him. She didn't complain or dramatize her hardships, but the quiet resilience, the years of weary perseverance, were evident in the soft lines around her eyes and the gentle cadence of her voice. Arthur listened, not as a billionaire to an employee, but as one human being to another. He saw beyond the simple clothes and tired hands to the fierce love and unwavering moral compass within. And Elena, in turn, began to see beyond the tycoon, the captain of industry, to the lonely man with sad eyes, a man who seemed to carry a grief as heavy as any burden she herself bore. When she spoke of Matteo's need for Bright Futures Academy, her voice thick with mother's fierce love and quiet desperation, Arthur made a silent, decisive note. This wasn't about a reward anymore. This was about something far more important. He did press a portion of the reward money on her, reframing it as a standard company policy finder's fee, to ease her acceptance. It was still a life-altering sum for Elena, enough to cover Matteo's immediate school needs and lift a mountain of debt from her shoulders. She accepted with tearful, heartfelt gratitude. As Elena left his office, Arthur Vanderbilt found himself deeply moved. Her honesty was like a beam of pure light in a world he often found murky and self-serving. He hadn't felt such a genuine human connection, however brief, in years. He felt a profound stirring, not just of gratitude, but of something akin to hope. A week later, the director of the Bright Futures Academy called Elena, an anonymous benefactor. She explained with barely concealed excitement, had just established a substantial scholarship fund for gifted children from underprivileged backgrounds, based on Matteo's earlier assessment application, which Elena had submitted with more hope than expectation months ago. He was the fund's very first recipient. Full tuition, all associated costs covered. Elena sank onto her worn sofa, tears of disbelief and overwhelming joy streaming down her face. An anonymous benefactor. She knew. Her heart swelled with gratitude, so profound it left her breathless. This wasn't a reward tied to the watch. This was a separate act of extraordinary, life-changing kindness, delivered with a tact that preserved her dignity. Arthur, for his part, found Elena Ramirez occupying his thoughts far more than he'd anticipated. Her quiet strength, her unassuming integrity, it was a balm to his jaded spirit. He, who could buy almost anything, was starved for something authentic. He began to find reasons, plausible ones, to visit the Northwood Grand Mall during her shift hours, an art exhibit he was considering for his foundation, a new bespoke tailor he needed to consult. One late afternoon, he coincidentally encountered Elena in a quieter wing, diligently polishing the brass railings of a disused fountain. "Ms. Ramirez." "Elena." "What a pleasant surprise," he said, his smile open and warm. Elena, startled, nearly dropped her polishing cloth. "Mr. Vanderbilt." "Arthur." "Hello." "Please, it's Arthur," he said gently. He gestured toward a small, almost hidden cafe. "I was about to grab a coffee. Would you care to join me? If you have a moment from your duties, of course." She hesitated, acutely aware of her work uniform, the faint scent of brass polish on her hands. But his eyes were kind, his invitation genuine. I have my break in 10 minutes. "That would be lovely, Arthur." Over steaming cups of coffee, a frothy cappuccino for her, a strong black espresso for him, they talked, not of business or high society, but of ordinary things. He asked about Matteo, and Elena's face glowed as she described his excitement and progress at Bright Futures. She, in turn, found herself asking about Eleanor, whose name he'd mentioned with such reverence in connection to the watch. Arthur spoke of his late wife with a quiet, aching tenderness, sharing small, cherished memories, her love for unruly rose gardens, her infectious laugh, the way she'd hum off-key while painting. He wasn't seeking pity. He was simply sharing a piece of his carefully guarded heart. Elena listened with an empathy that was a soothing balm to his old wounds. She understood loss, understood the long shadow of grief. In Elena, Arthur discovered someone who saw him, the man, not the magnate. She wasn't awestruck by his wealth, nor did she treat him with the cloying deference he so often encountered. She was simply herself, honest, grounded, and possessing a quiet wisdom that resonated deeply with him. For Elena, these conversations were like discovering hidden rooms in a familiar house, filled with unexpected warmth and intellectual companionship. Arthur never made her feel less than. He made her feel seen, heard, valued. The chasm of their differing worlds remained, yet a delicate bridge of mutual respect and burgeoning affection was being carefully constructed, conversation by conversation. As autumn painted the city in hues of gold and crimson, Arthur and Elena's coincidental meetings evolved into intentional ones. He'd call, ostensibly to ask her opinion, on a new community outreach program his foundation was considering, one focused on supporting single mothers and underprivileged children, causes Elena understood intimately. One crisp Saturday, Arthur invited Elena and Matteo to his country estate, a place Eleanor had cherished. It wasn't a cold, imposing palace, but a warm, sprawling farmhouse surrounded by acres of woodland and tranquil gardens, a place where Arthur seemed to shed the weight of his corporate persona. They spent the day exploring. Matteo, overjoyed, chased squirrels and collected colorful leaves, his laughter echoing through the trees. Arthur, relaxed in jeans and a worn sweater, showed Matteo how to skip stones across the shimmering surface of a small lake, his face alight with a boyish enthusiasm Elena found incredibly endearing. Later, they shared a simple picnic on the vast lawn. Sandwiches Arthur confessed he'd made himself, with a little guidance from his housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, who clearly adored him, fresh fruit and lemonade. As Matteo, weary from his adventures, dozed on a soft blanket nearby, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows, Arthur turned to Elena. His expression was serious, yet tender. "Elena," he began, his voice imbued with deep sincerity, "when you returned my watch, it was an act of remarkable honesty. But what you've done since, simply by being who you are, that has been far more profound for me." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Eleanor gave me that watch. It was a repository of our shared time, our memories. Losing it felt like a door slamming shut on that part of my life." Elena listened, her heart full, understanding the depth of his unspoken pain. "When you brought it back," he continued, his gaze holding hers, "it was more than just a return of an object. It felt like Eleanor, perhaps, giving me permission to open a new door. Your quiet strength, your unwavering decency, Elena, it cut through years of cynicism and grief. You didn't just return a timepiece. You returned a piece of my hope. You reminded me that my heart wasn't entirely closed off. This was it, the true reveal, not his fortune, which was public knowledge, but the unveiling of his vulnerable, healing heart and profound, transformative impact her simple honesty and her subsequent gentle presence had made on a secluded world. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man rediscovering his capacity to feel, to connect, guided by the unassuming light of this remarkable woman. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. "Arthur," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "you've shown me such incredible kindness. You gave Matteo a future I could only dream of. You talked to me, you listened to me like I truly matter." A single tear, carrying the weight of years of feeling invisible, traced a path down her cheek. He reached out, his thumb gently brushing the tear away. The touch was brief, exquisitely tender, yet it sent a current of profound connection through her. "You do matter, Elena," he said softly, "more than you know." In that moment, the vast differences in their societal standing, their wealth, their past, seemed to dissolve, insignificant against the powerful, undeniable human bond that had formed between them. It wasn't about rescue or fairy tale. It was about two souls, bruised but not broken, finding an unexpected, extraordinary solace in one another. The journey from that golden afternoon to a shared future was paved with gentle understanding and quiet joy. Arthur and Elena's love story was not a whirlwind of public declarations, but a steady, deep current that reshaped the landscape of their lives. Elena, with Arthur's unwavering support, found her calling beyond cleaning. She began volunteering at a local community center, her empathy and first-hand understanding of hardship, making her an invaluable source of comfort and practical help. Later, with significant backing from Arthur's foundation, guided by Elena's compassionate insights, the center expanded its services, becoming a true beacon of hope in the neighborhood. She never lost her humility or her profound gratitude, but she blossomed, her quiet strength now radiating a confident warmth. Mateo thrived, a happy, brilliant boy who adored Arthur, the kind and steady father figure who had entered his life so unexpectedly. Arthur, in turn, found a joy in fatherhood he'd never known, attending school plays, helping with homework, sharing laughter and stories. The profound loneliness that had shadowed him for years began to dissipate, replaced by the vibrant energy of Mateo and the deep, abiding love he shared with Elena. He became more engaged, more present, his philanthropy now driven by a genuine desire to connect and make a difference, inspired by Elena's quiet compassion. The Rolex, the glittering catalyst of their improbable meeting, remained a cherished possession, but its significance had transformed. It was no longer just a memento of a love lost, but a symbol of honesty's incredible power, a testament to an unexpected love found. It reminded them both that life's greatest treasures are rarely material, but are forged in acts of kindness, moments of true connection, and the courage to choose integrity even when the world offers easier paths. Elena and Arthur's story was a quiet miracle, a testament to the fact that love can bridge any divide, that honesty can yield unimaginable rewards, and that sometimes the most profound connections are found in the most unexpected of places. Theirs was not a tale of a cleaner saved by a billionaire, but of two souls saving each other, building a life rich in love, respect, and a shared humanity that was more precious than all the gold in the world.